but like, and we're live. Holy fuck! Hello, welcome to episode 14 of Talkin Tech, the weekly podcast from MobileTechTalk. This is episode 14. Remember that, Lull? So this week in the mobile tech sphere is MWC, Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. So for those of you that don't know, MWC is kind of CES for phones, for lack of a better phrase. Everything happens at MWC. For the longest time, I think, except for the S3 and S4, Samsung announced the Galaxy S there. Up until, I think, last year or the year before, HTC announced their flagship there. And Sony announced one of their 2 flagships a year at MWC. And yeah, sadly, Sony still does 2 flagships a year. So MWC is kind of a big deal because, well, I don't really want to go Vegas, and I can fly to Barcelona in less than 2 hours. So I could drive there in like a day, which is also super cool.
But why would you want to do that?
Easily.
Why?
Huh?
Why would you want to do that?
What, fly to Barcelona or drive?
Drive. Flying's fine. I mean, you know, it's...
I mean, it depends on who I'm going with. If I'm driving the entire way there, like, nah. But if it's like swapping and there's like 2 of us, I'd be cool with that.
That makes a lot more sense rather than just going a day's worth of driving by yourself.
Given the choice, I'd fly. Like, straight up.
I'd drive.
An hour and a half. Chris, you would not.
I'd give it a go.
No, because it's literally like a 24-hour like drive, like literally. It's like 22 to 24-hour drive. Like I've done it. Like I've done it, and it's hard.
Google Maps. Let's.
I can't believe. Fuck it. Let him do that. So as you can see, I am Dom. I'm the host. We have Chris Wallace as always. Say hello, Chris.
Hello.
We're supposed to have Mark with us, but he's having some technical difficulties at the moment. And as you can see, we have someone new. We have a special guest. 2 weeks in a row, Mr. Kurt Colbeck, who was meant to be here last week but couldn't for unforeseen circumstances. Say hello, Kurt.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here.
So, quick, Kurt. Let's try that again. So, Kurt, tell us a quick thing about yourself.
Right, so I am Kurt Colbeck, as you can see from the lower third, so why did I even say that in the first place? I am a writer and editor for MobileTechTalk, which is a little small website that does writing of things of technology. And I also, once upon a time, back in the ice cream sandwich days of Android, used to be a themer for Android with over 1 million downloads, because I like to boast about that.
I didn't know you used to be a themer.
Yes, I did. I'm a retired Android themer, but back in the ice cream sandwich days, I released one of the first themes for ice cream sandwich.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of theming work a little while ago for a YouTube channel called My Color Screens, which was, I think, co-owned by the XDA guys. I did like 3 or 4 videos for them, like contracted out, and they dropped me. They were just like, the audience hates you, and I was like, straight up, fine. Like I couldn't read those comments every week.
Well, fuck them, you know. You're better off without you.
Yeah, and I can moderate comments on my own channel. Fuck them. So that's a bit of a tangent. Let's start again.
55 minutes to Barcelona from where I am.
Yeah, that's if you're like non-stop. You have to stop, Chris. You cannot ride for 16 hours.
I'd give it a go.
Oh God.
I'd be stupid enough to...
Starting with the news. I can mute your ass and I can kick you out of here, Chris. Starting with the news, the first in the dock is the Alcatel Idol 4 and Idol 4S. Also, Alcatel went through a slight rebranding. So, as you may or may not know, for the longest time, Alcatel was known as Alcatel One Touch. They're a subsidiary of Chinese conglomerate TCL, and this year they rebranded just to Alcatel. I have a few reasons as to why this may be. I don't know if many of you know this, but Alcatel-Lucent is a French company that did network management stuff, and Alcatel-Lucent has just sold to Nokia, or what was left of Nokia. And I think because they've just been sold to Nokia, they're allowed that now TCL is allowed to use the just Alcatel name, but that's just conjecture. Basically, the impressive stuff here is the Idol 4 and the Idol 4S. So do either of you have anything to say about this, or do you want me to start?
I don't mind saying something about it. I don't proclaim to be like an Alcatel fanboy here, so the Idol 3... Yeah,
Straight
well,
up.
I'll leave that all to you then, really. But the Alcatel Idol 3, I didn't really know of up until about a couple of months ago, really. So the Idol 4, from what I can see, is a very impressive device in its entirety at least. It's got the Idol 4's got a 5.2-inch display, 1080p, an octa-core processor, although it doesn't state which processor it is. Is it a
It's
MediaTek
a
processor?
Snapdragon 652.
All right, okay. Is that the rubbish one, or is that the
No,
615?
that's the good one. So basically, the 61X, so 615, 616, 617 are all kind of bleh and shouldn't exist. With the 620 series and the 650 series, they've gotten more interesting. So the 650, and I'll speak about the 652. It's 4 low-power A53s and 4 high-power A72s. So the A72s are the newer version of the A57s, which is what was in the 810, and the A72s do not suck, which is what we need to know about.
That is music to my ears, at least, because I know the 615 didn't have a good track record for its short time in mid-range smartphones.
I will hold my tongue for that.
I don't want you swearing too much, even though we don't really have a limit to swearing on here. But yeah, it does look like a fan. I mean, I'm not sure what the 13 megapixel camera has got to offer, but the 3 gigs of RAM will hold the memory management up quite well with the OS. And it looks, I'm guessing it's Marshmallow with both of these devices?
Yes, Marshmallow at launch.
Yeah, and it looks like it's a hybrid between their own skinning and a bit of stock compared to the status bar icons at the top there.
If it's anything like what they did with the Idol 3, it's very light skinning. So their skinning really extends to a launcher, and that's about it. They add a few quick toggles because the Idol 3s and now the Idol 4s do it to an even wackier extent. Do this super cool thing where you can twist the phone and it does like full flipping. Because it's got a speaker and a mic on the top and the bottom, it doesn't matter which way you pick it up.
Ah, yeah, I heard about that.
So,
yeah,
but there's a toggle in the notification quick bar to turn that off if it gets annoying for you. So
that's a good idea.
Alcatel's customizations to the Idol 3s were very minimal. Unfortunately, that didn't mean it got updates any faster. Actually, it means it got no updates at all. It's still on 5.02, and I tell them about it every time I speak to them.
I think Alcatel's one of those companies, but haven't got a proven track record in terms of software updates. I think it's they've never really been at the forefront of the people to be let known about software updates, have they really?
No. But at least Marshmallow is in a better state than Lollipop was when it launched.
Well, very true. Marshmallow is a very stable release for Google, to be honest. So, yeah.
Agreed. The interesting things for me, I don't remember if you quickly spoke about that, is they are now metal and glass. We have aluminium frames that run through, and Gorilla Glass 4 on the front, and Asahi Dragon Tail glass on the back. Not too thrilled about the Dragon Tail, but Gorilla Glass 4 on the front is pretty cool. A lot of people have pointed out the similarity to the Galaxy S6/S7, and I agree. The similarity is definitely there, especially if you just see it from the back.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Then again,
it's a very pretty design.
It is very pretty.
And go for it.
Yeah, most phones seem to have something similar with another phone. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. I mean, there's only so many ways you can design a glass
phone. Yeah.
Well, exactly. It's just taking not inspiration either. It's just that like I say, there's only certain ways you can design a glass phone, isn't there, or a metal phone. So, but the one thing I want to say about the 4 and 4S, I think it's the 4S actually more than the 4, is it sort of looks like the Nexus 4 from the front. The LG Nexus 4. It's sort of with the curved glass. It looks quite nice.
And another thing I kind of want to speak about quickly is, like the Idol 3, they have stereo speakers on the front. They also have stereo speakers on the back.
On the back.
Nice.
So you can put this phone face down, and it will activate the speakers on the back, so your music just carries on blaring out. It's got 4 speakers. It doesn't give a shit. This has to be. You can take a phone call on the Idol 4 like this if you wanted. Technically, you could take it this way, this way, or this way, and it wouldn't care.
It is literally surround sound.
Very much so. So the 4S has the bigger 5.5-inch Quad HD AMOLED display. Super pretty. Looks amazing in photos. I am what's known as an OLED whore. OLED is without a doubt my favorite screen technology.
Seconded.
Quantum dot IPS is like getting really close though, especially with some of the stuff I've been hearing about some companies being able to stimulate quantum dots without the need of a backlight. So essentially making quantum dots work like organic LEDs in OLEDs.
All right, so it's taking IPS to the next level.
Essentially, yeah, it's taking an LCD improvement and then taking it into its own, or take it into the same league as OLEDs, which is good. And we have Mark now. Mark, say hello.
Hello, and I
That's
can hear
working.
you. Yay!
Yes, everything is working. Before we move on, Mark, do you want to say anything quickly about the Idol 4, or do you not know anything yet?
I like the turning upside down and it'll work both ways thing. I think that's cool. Apparently they've also done stereo speakers, and sound will now rotate regardless of which way round you turn it. So yeah, I think that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I think they said there's dual 3.6 watt speakers. So 3.6 watt on the top and a 3.6 watt at the bottom, and it kind of fires both ways.
That seems interesting, especially since I like the 1M8 for its front-firing speakers, which...
One thing to know though, power, like the amount of wattage it has, doesn't mean it's going to be a good speaker.
Oh, no, it doesn't mean it's going to be a good speaker, but the fact that the option's there makes watching videos a lot more...
Yeah, plus I will bet a bajillion pounds that will be PMPO rather than RMS, so...
I'm going to nod and pretend I know what you're saying there.
RMS, root mean square.
Oh, okay.
PMPO is peak music power output. Essentially, the little capacitor in there can give a tiny split second beep at 3.6 watts.
Right, and it's at other times it's running at a much more like 1.5 watts, something like that.
Yeah, it's what cheap, shitty old stereos used to use to say, oh, we have 5 bajillion watts.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it means nothing.
And lastly, before we move on, I just remembered the probably most interesting and wacky thing about these is the box, which sounds crazy. The box is a plastic Google Cardboard viewer.
Yes, I
That's
didn't
nice.
notice that.
That's really cool. I think in some regions even the 4 gets it, but yes, it's mainly limited to the 4S because it's larger screen and higher resolution. But again, that's like kind of super interesting to me because again, I have cardboard and I use it actually rather often. Having something a lot more rigid with a way better screen than what I've currently been using, and probably better lenses as well, like go for it. I think the rigidity would add a lot as well. Alright, so next up, the next bit, Robin. So who wants to take
Craig has brought one.
Yes, Craig brought one.
Yes,
the editor-in-chief of MobileTechTalk, so we're going to review it eventually, or Craig's going to review it. But do any of you want to speak about the next bit, Robin? Have none of you read the reviews?
I look at it and I just think Jolla, or Yolla, or however you pronounce it.
It does kind of look like the Yolla Selfish.
Not only does it look like it, I think it's going to get the company's going the same way. It's like, yes, you've come out and you've done something fairly original and clever, and everyone's going to go, oh, that's really nice, good on you. Yeah, I'm not buying one.
Yeah, I don't think I'd pick one up.
The interesting thing for me is when they said we've sold out like in like a half day. I was like, yes, that means nothing. You can sell out if you have 10 handsets.
Yeah.
No, they won't tell us how many have been sold or pre-ordered. So,
I imagine by hype, quite a few.
Yeah. Kurt, did you want to say something quick?
Next bit, Robin. It's a great design. Like you say, it's taken a lot of inspiration from the Yolla range of devices. It does look very inspired by that.
What was that phone called? It was the Yolla something.
The Yolla.
I don't care. The OS.
Yeah, it's a phone that we forgot about in the 10 minutes we even knew about it.
I mean, it was out of date when it launched.
It was from Finland, but not Nokia. I mean,
yeah. So that it automatically means nobody cares about it anyway. So.
I mean, speaking of Nokia, sorry, Kurt, Nokia had a quick presser at MWC today, and they kind of said the words I was really hoping for, which is we're not in a hurry to get back into the phone business, which is really good. Which they said they don't want to do what like Polaroid and Kodak have done, which is slap their brand name on everything.
Yes, they do. they I think, when's the contract with Microsoft run out? Is it
This year, isn't it?
End of last year, I think.
Is it the last year? I thought it was this
Last
year.
year or last quarter of this year.
I thought it was like the end of this year.
I think it might be last quarter of this year.
Yeah, I would imagine Nokia want to stick their name on stuff. Just they haven't been allowed to do anything about it.
From what I understand as well, they had a phone in development with Foxconn in the same way the N1 tablet, except this was designed by Nokia proper. But it fell through at the last minute, and Foxconn was just like, it's a little bit too much of a risk for us at the moment, and they just dropped Nokia like a lead weight.
Yeah.
So, quick spec rundown of the Robin. 5.2-inch 1080p IPS display is seen as meh by pretty much everyone that's reviewed it. Snapdragon 808, 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage. Pretty cool body. It's weird. It's really hard angular rectangle with loads of circle motifs like everywhere. So the dual speakers in the front are circles. The front camera is obviously a circle. The proximity and light sensors are in a circular enclosure on the back. You've got the camera and the camera and the flash. There is a cloud on the back with a set of status indicator lights on the back where it's doing its thing, which is backing up certain stuff. The volume buttons are two little teal dots, and the power/fingerprint scanner is in the same place as Sony's have it. That's cool. And I thought it was awesome until I used a Sony device and I remembered I'm left-handed, and nothing likes left-handed people. So, whatever. And it runs a slightly, actually, no, it's not fair calling it. It's a really quite heavily customized version of Marshmallow.
It looks horrible.
You think it looks horrible?
Yeah.
Looks aside, I'm just thinking it's never, ever, ever, ever getting an update.
If that's true, at least it launched with Marshmallow. That's all I can say. I want to say that I trust them purely because of the people that are behind it, but as history has already shown us, we can't trust essentially promises. So, I mean, pretty much everyone has said it's not terrible, like, surprisingly. Its big claim to fame is that it does. It's a phone that never runs out of space. So it has 32 gigs of onboard storage, but you get 100 gigabytes of next bit special cloud stuff. So if it senses you haven't used an app for a certain amount of time, it will back up the superfluous data, the big bits, off to its private encrypted cloud, and then you can press a button and it will bring it back down. You don't have to log in again. All your stuff is still there. With photos, it saves like a screen resolution version of the photo, and if you try and zoom in is when it brings the real one down. Cool, kind of gimmicky. It doesn't do it with video, which kind of doesn't make sense, seeing as video takes up way more space.
But people seem to take more pictures, so I can kind of see where they're going with that.
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
I think they're probably just working it on the same basis as every other cloud storage. They promise a big number and just hope that nobody actually uses it.
Yeah, I mean, who's it? I think it's Acer today has done even a similar thing and announced their Liquid Jade or whatever has a terabyte of cloud storage. I was like, that's not going to last. I can already tell you that's not going to last. Or it might, because who the hell buys Acer smartphones?
Exactly.
I wonder what's going to sell more, the next bit Robin or that Acer phone.
Who buys Acer products?
I don't know. I've had some pretty good Acer stuff in the past.
Yeah.
I don't think I recall ever owning any Acer products.
I remember
the stuff's alright.
I remember thinking more highly of Acer than Asus at one point, and then that's flipped.
Well, it must have, because you're using the Asus Chromebook.
Yes, that totally Past my mind. Yes, I am. Wow.
They can't be that bad.
There you go.
I'm using the Sue's laptop and that doesn't break, so.
True. Anything else you want to say about the Robin? Do you want one?
No.
That was easy.
Do you want anything besides an iPhone?
Come back to that question.
I think the correct answer was I plead the fifth. Though we're all English, so that doesn't actually mean anything to us. Well, then that's really all we're going to say about the Robin. Like I said, it's pretty much everyone that's reviewed it, apart from Ron, is it Amadio? I don't know how you say it.
Okay.
Ron from Ars Technica has said the idea is just so flawed because of tiered data plans.
Yes, not a problem for me personally, but I do know people that are on low-ish data plans.
I mean, you can set it so it only uses Wi-Fi when
Yeah,
it's plugged in, but then you're downloading. You're still doing the downloading, which is.
I mean, like, fair enough. We're all like crazy, mobile nerds. We were all. I better take it. We're all on 3. We're all on all-you-can-eat data.
Yep.
Most normal people don't do this. Like, my sister, she, got a new contract a couple of months ago. She did upgrade the data a lot. She moved up to 6 gigabytes.
I'd throttle that within 2 days.
Yeah. Afternoon. I've had days where I have put 20 gigs through the phone.
I think my sister has 6 gigs, but she gets either 6 or 12 gigs of tethering data as well. Like, she has a lot of tethering data. But she doesn't use it.
You just don't get charged for tethering.
Yeah.
Because they don't give a shit.
I mean, trust me, they do. If you're on an iPhone, where they can tell.
Oh, God, they can tell if you've got an iPhone, but I mean,
you're on Android.
It's an iPhone.
No. Moving on before this.
I think
the Galaxy S7, which was announced yesterday. Oh, and the S7 Edge for those of you that care.
I don't care about the Edge. I reviewed the Edge S6 Edge Plus, but don't care about the S7 Edge.
So
Apart from its biggest screen.
God damn it, Chris! Because Mark came in late, I'm going to ask him what he thinks of the Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge first. Mark, please say something quick.
Okay. I like them. There's nothing particularly special or interesting about them. Pretty much like the S6 and the S5 and the S4 and the 3 and the 2 and the 1. Yeah, they're nice. They're really well spec'd. The screens, I'm sure, will be stunning on them. They still have that stupid button in the middle. Samsung still likes putting the fucking back button on the wrong side. I mean, what? Like, what? Back is on the left, right? Not on the right. Why would you do that? That's retarded.
That's how Samsung's always been, though.
I know, and and there's so many Chinese companies that copy them. It is absolutely the most retarded thing ever in the world.
It annoys me less when they reverse the order on screen buttons, because that's a pretty easy build.prop fix. When they do it in hardware like this, that pisses me off.
Well, the thing that I don't know whether it's I've just not looked closely, but the back and the menu buttons, I don't particularly see the icon.
I did notice that.
Because you can get a little app, because that's what I use on the P8000, because it has the hardware capacitive buttons, but it doesn't actually have any
backlight.
Well, no, there's just no button. The button exists, but there is no image associated with it.
Okay.
So you just reconfigure them, you just remap them to whatever you want. And if you can do that with the Samsung, then yay!
No, you can't. Or you can do that, but the image will still be wrong. So when you touch them, they light up. They've had the color removed from the back, but they've left enough on, so when it's unlit, it looks seamless.
See, I noticed with the I'm going back a little bit, but the S4 and the S3, there was a option within the settings to
change the backlight length or the intensity.
Yeah, not intent. There wasn't. I didn't find any intensity. There was a duration, and I always used to turn them off.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. None of the photos The Verge has taken have the button lit up. But if you
But I
But
know
yeah, it does the same thing. Whereas if you touch them, the backlight comes on in a second or two. It'll turn it off.
But I did notice on was it when the S4 was upgraded to, I think it got upgraded to Lollipop. Quote me if I'm wrong. But I did notice with the S6 that my mum's just picked up on contract and the S6 Edge Plus when I had it for review, you couldn't alter the settings on them.
No, you couldn't. I had an S6 and you couldn't alter the backlight setting.
Yeah, which was really annoying because I just turn it off because I know mentally that that's where the buttons are. It's like Mark complaining that the back button's on the wrong side. I pick up a Galaxy device.
It is on the wrong side.
It is on the wrong side, but I pick up a Galaxy device and just go, thunk, as if I'd never even noticed.
Yeah. Like I said, it bothers me less when it's in the wrong order in software because that's a really easy fix. But when they've purposely made the effort to
I don't think they
etch the buttons. No, they purposely make the effort to etch the buttons in the wrong way. It's easier to flip a switch in software than it is to get a piece of glass, paint it, and then etch out buttons.
Well, I don't know. I think the only reason they're still doing the buttons is because they have decided that they will have the little home button as a button because that's what Apple do.
As an iPhone user, Kurt, how do you feel about them keeping the home button?
Well, I think Apple and Samsung are more the same, aren't they, really? I think they've got their own trademark and their own niche, although it is only a home button. It's still one thing. It's
recognisable.
Yeah, people will remember the devices by, although it does suck to have a physical home button. The iPhones, I personally have gotten used to them, and they don't suck as much for me anymore because I've sort of gotten used to the whole thing. But capacitive buttons are a bit of a different kettle of fish for me. I'm not a massive fan of capacitive buttons.
So you,
sorry, Chris.
I was going to say, so you prefer something like the A9, where it's a rigid fingerprint scanner, but there's options within the settings. So when it's tapped, even by a non-registered print, it'll act as a home button then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was speaking. We had Greg on last week, and I posed a question to him. If you could have your iPhone with the Touch ID sensor removed, it's embedded under the screen, yeah,
and
it had no home button, but it used Force Touch on the. So it removed the home button, made the bottom bezel smaller. If you could Force Touch on that bottom bezel to go home, and Touch ID was still there, would you do that?
I would do that. Yeah, that's quite an intuitive little nifty feature, I guess. You know, it's when they probably implement more things into the bottom bezel, maybe like the trackpad in the MacBook Pro. You know, with the Force Touch and gestures and things like that.
I mean,
I'd do that.
Qualcomm has something like this. Their Sense ID is essentially how that works. It's an ultrasonic fingerprint scanner that can be placed under like metal or glass, or I think they even showed it under a type of rock at one point, like a thin layer of rock, which is actually kind of cool. But that it would allow you to put the fingerprint sensor under the screen, so it would be one seamless thing.
Wasn't there a screen protector for the iPhone 6S Plus that used to that basically you pressed either side at the bottom and it would manipulate? I don't know how it worked, but it would manipulate pressing the top corners.
Yeah, it's a what's it called? Capacitive channel, essentially, and it's only on the bottom left because that's where the back button is in iOS. So there's a capacitive strip from where the back button is down to next to the home button.
They did it on the other side.
You can touch there to make a faux back button.
Yeah, I thought that was a clever. It just triggered when you said about using Force Touch on part of the bezel.
So actually, speaking of Force Touch, that's one of the many things the S7 was rumored to have and it didn't come out with.
Are you surprised?
So actually, I kind of am. Samsung has shown a fair amount of restraint this year. So the S7 and S7 Edge have either Snapdragon 820s, which is the new top dog from Qualcomm. Let's hope it's better than the 810. Sorry. Everywhere that's not the US, I believe, there may be one or two other regions, has the octa-core Exynos 8890, which is interesting to me as a CPU person because it's the first CPU that Samsung has designed. Samsung has designed the 4 big cores in the 8890. The Exynos M1 is the code name. They're custom-made cores that are architecturally similar-ish to the A72s, but they have. Don't worry, I'm gonna bore other people. So we've got two different processors depending on where you live. 4 gigs of RAM, 32 or 64 gigs of internal storage. It's UFS, which is faster than everything else apart from the NVMe SSDs in the iPhone 6s and 6s Plus. They brought back the micro SD slot, so
Yay!
babies that want slow, crappy, undependable storage can have it back. But you cannot do Marshmallow's adoptable storage because the micro SD card shares a tray with the nano SIM.
I like that.
If you remove, I like that. But that's why you can't have adoptable storage, because if you adopt the storage and then remove the SD card, it freaks the fuck out.
Yeah, I like that because
that's fine.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Like, if you wanted adoptable storage, you have to have 2 trays. That's it. That takes up a lot more space.
Yeah, I like it because the M8 has the SIM card one side and the SD card the other, and I've just done that the total wrong way around. And the one thing I find, I should know it by now, but the one thing I quite often find myself doing is pulling out the wrong tray.
My Moto X Play has a dual SIM card micro SD slot tray, and I had a small-ish SD card in there formatted for adoptable storage. The performance hit was definitely noticeable, and it corrupted the SD card.
Then again, if
it formats and encrypts it.
Yeah, to be honest, adoptable storage is just plain and simply bad and should not be used, and it's just there as an excuse for manufacturers to be cheap bastards in installing the initial amount of storage on the phone.
I agree on that slightly. Sorry, Chris, quickly want to put this in before I forget about it. I agree with you completely on that. But I don't think adoptable storage should be a thing on phones. On tablets, it kind of makes sense because you're not going to be taking the SD card out often. The best place for adoptable storage is set-top boxes. So like the NVIDIA Shield, for instance, that has either 16 or the stupid 500 gig spinning model, has an SDXC slot. You get a 200 gig micro SD card in there, boom, pop it in at the back. That's an extra 200 gigs of storage for your games, because those games are motherfucking huge. Oh, wow, I should probably take more than one breath. So, moving on, the S7 has like a phenomenal camera from what I've seen as well. The S6 had a really good camera. Its only real downfall was, even though it had a fast lens,
I think if you're really that fussed about how awesome a camera is, buy a camera.
Yeah, true.
I agree.
There reaches a point where I know there's a lot of, the ways that lots of review sites, not naming any names, they really like to focus on the camera because they can take 4 million photos and fill up page after page of ad impressions. And it's just like, I'm sorry, but if the camera is that important to you, if it's so important that your drunken photos, 2 o'clock on a Saturday morning are so amazing, then go and buy a fucking DSLR and take that with you.
I think you're looking at it from the wrong angle here, because again, if what's the phrase? The best camera is the one you have on you.
Yeah.
And when you get into this point where, all right, this is actually a legitimately good camera. It's my drunken selfies at 2 a.m. actually can look pretty great. I can actually remember the parts, or I can piece together parts of that amazing night.
When was the last time you saw on a high-end premium device, you saw a photo and you went, oh well, that's just absolutely terrible. The camera in that is so appallingly shit. I could not use that.
Not lately.
The Note 3. Get S5 in nighttime. To this day, like the S5 takes some of the best daylight shots I've ever seen. I don't know what they did, because the S5 had a Samsung sensor from the get-go.
Yeah, but this is the thing.
The ISO was great in daylight, sucked in low light.
I think the way that cameras are used on phones, they've reached a point where they're all fairly kind of plateauing. One might be slightly better than another, but for what we're doing with them, they're all good enough easily. Even mid-rangers. Yeah. Mid-rangers are good enough.
They have, I think smartphone cameras have pretty much reached their peak in terms of use case for what people actually use them for. I mean, You know, I mean, most people, the average consumer, want to use a smartphone camera for Snapchat, Instagram, and stuff like that. And the quality of the image isn't going to really dampen, is it really?
I'd
Unless
much
it's
rather.
like me.
I'd be fine if Samsung had kept the same sensor, just super improved post-processing.
Yeah, that's the one thing I find with the M8 is camera sometimes can be an arse.
I'm going to refrain from saying anything here.
Yeah. I know it's a 2-3-year-old 2-year-old phone. 2-year-old? Yeah, 2-year-old, and it runs Marshmallow. Yet my mum's newly acquired S6 doesn't. Somebody want to explain that to me?
Scent is lighter than TouchWiz. That's simple.
Samsung think their customers are too stupid to care.
Samsung customers oftentimes are too stupid to care sometimes.
Yeah, they are.
Well, I never said Samsung were wrong.
No. Like I said, after the debacle with Lollipop, when everyone rushed out Lollipop like a month or two after it launched, and then what happened, I don't blame anyone for waiting this long for Marshmallow. Fuck it.
Yeah, to be honest, and anyone who actually gives a shit about getting updates quickly, they buy an Nexus. That's it. They buy a Nexus.
I want a Nexus.
They don't care what camera it has on it or how much RAM it has. They buy a Nexus, and that's it.
I want a Nexus, but they're so bloody damn expensive.
They're not all that expensive. I mean, it depends. Like, you're looking at it from the wrong perspective, Chris. Like, you bought your M8 when it was a year old, and you bought it second hand.
And it was 120 quid.
Yeah. If you had bought that brand new.
Oh God, yeah, I would have crippled my wallet.
Exactly. Like I said, if you wanted, you could go out and buy 32 gig 6P. I'd say a 5X, but lol, no one should buy the 5X. At least not until Google fixes it.
No, you still shouldn't. You should just, if you want a phone that size, buy the 5. Save the rest of the money.
Just buy a new battery. Just replace your batteries every now and again.
Buy the battery cases. Actually, don't. No one buy the battery cases. I'm quickly going to rush through this just because otherwise I'm going to forget, or we're not going to speak about anything else. The S7 Edge is slightly more different than the S6 and S6 Edge were. There is no Plus model this year, so the S6 and S6 Edge were the same size.
There isn't
the S7. Yet. Oh yeah, there's not one yet. We were speaking of this before. If there is, it's going to be like 6 inches.
Yeah, I mean,
the S7 Edge is 5.5 inches. Fucking hell, that was difficult.
The S6 Edge Plus was 5.7 inches, so I don't see the need for a Plus model.
Yeah, but there are like 51 other weeks of the year for Samsung to release phones, right? That's at least 51 other models.
No, that's their tablet range.
That was something I kidded up before. I said the Galaxy S7 Edge is 5.5 inches. The Galaxy S7 Edge Plus is actually the Tab S2. So not only is it just a bigger screen, can someone please get this fucking phone? It has a bigger battery. 3600 milliamp hours is a nice sizable jump from the 3000 on the S6 Edge Plus and the 2600 in the S6 Edge. We have yet to see if having the bigger battery makes an appreciable difference in battery life.
I think it's a step in the right direction, and it's also a step we kind of all, /predicted /hoped would happen, is that this year manufacturers will start sticking bigger batteries and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we just speak on this forever, we're going to quickly speak about the G5, but this is going to be a quick one because I don't think any of us actually give two shits about it.
No.
So LG announced the G5. It's very ugly.
It's not a G series. End of.
It is super weird. I think Simon Osborne from Flibblesand on Twitter said it's like LG wanted to make a 6P but started with a 5X. And that's as good as I can say. It's got a 5.3-inch IPS quantum display at 2560 by 1440, Snapdragon 820, 4 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage, dual cameras on the back. One is 16 megapixels at 84 degrees, and the other one is 8 megapixels at 135 degrees.
Looks like a fake.
The fingerprint sensor is on the back. The power button is integrated into the fingerprint sensor, which is cool. They've moved the volume buttons back round to the side, and the bottom comes off.
Bottom comes off, asking to be broken.
Yes, straight up. They call it the Friends system. So there's a latch on the side. You click the button, you pull the bottom off. It pulls the battery out with it. You can take the battery off. You can attach a Bang & Olufsen Hi-Fi DAC, which is what they call it, or the Hi-Fi Plus. You attach the battery in it, and then you slide it back in. Then it gives you like a 32-bit. I don't know. It's an audio type person thing. There are lots of numbers and hertz and bits thrown around.
Yeah,
I think they're playing on the Bang & Olufsen name more than anything else.
That's, to be honest, what Bang & Olufsen do. Bang & Olufsen is stuff you don't buy it because it sounds super good. You buy it because it looks super good.
Right. Thank you.
And not that they sound bad. I mean, you know, full credit to them. Their stuff is not bad. It's not terrible, but
there is better things for similar prices.
Yeah.
It's like the iPhone.
You buy their stuff because of the way it looks. That's why you buy it. Because you have, you know, the Steve Gates, Steve Jobs.
Steve Gates. That's a meme somewhere.
Gates.
You know, that yacht that he had that was just the bizarrest boat. It's because you own that and you want a set of speakers to go with it. Right. That's why you go to Bang & Olufsen.
They've got a camera grip one as well, which adds an extra battery. So the battery life, or the battery capacity in the G5 on its own is 2880 milliamp hours. If you include the separate battery in this battery grip, it jumps up to about 4000. If you're going to make a camera grip, make it look like a camera grip, not this weird bulge on the back.
Yeah.
I have to say, everything about this phone and everything they've said, I kind of look at it and think, I think I actually need to see one in my hand because you're not convincing me. I'm not convinced it's a bad idea.
I'll tell you who did make a good job with the camera grips.
Nokia with the 1020?
Yep, because that actually had a tripod screw in it.
And it was an actual grip. Like, it's something you can grip rather than something you, like, do this to hope it holds.
Yeah,
Kurt, you've kind of said nothing.
Well, I don't give a shit about the G5. I think LG have just gone way off track here with the design language of the G line has been mainly quite good, you know. I mean, the G2 was a shiny plastic piece of shit. But, you know, other than that, it was a great ergonomic design, a well-known design with the LG branding on the front and things like that. We still got that in the G5, but the overall design of the device itself is just so terrible you just wouldn't want to hold it or show it to anybody in person.
I think it was Dan Seifert from The Verge that said it's pretty much the worst flagship he's picked up in recent years. Like, he said, the size of it is kind of okay, but even though it's metal, it doesn't feel premium or anything like that. And another annoying thing is, yet again, it's Marshmallow with an SD card slot, does not have adaptable storage. We've already spoken about why. It's Marshmallow, but on LG's user interface, they've removed the app drawer.
I don't understand the use. Why people are removing the app drawer?
They said it's to simplify and to declutter, which is the exact opposite. Because every time you install an app, you get another thing on your home screen.
I can understand cheap Chinese knockoffs not having an app drawer. I understand that they're trying to mimic iPhones, but why the fuck are LG doing it?
I don't know. They all seem to have this bizarre thing that you've somehow accidentally bought their product. You really wanted an iPhone, but you accidentally bought a Samsung or accidentally bought an LG.
I love that. That's a great analogy.
Is that what they really think? You know, it's like, oh, well, if we stick a home button on the front, maybe people will, you know, buy it by mistake. I mean, do you think your own products are that shit?
I don't really have much more to say. Like I said, it's...
Yeah, although one thing I do want to say for LG, they've done some weird stuff with this, and maybe not all or maybe any of it's actually going to work, but it's nice to see somebody actually trying something different.
True. Yeah, the whole modular thing, it's been an idea for quite a long time. Was it Project Aura from Google? Aura, was it?
Aura is still a thing, and I think they're aiming at developing markets. That makes sense to me, because with Aura, you can make a legitimately low-cost phone and then build it up like a PC. You can like buy a low-cost one when you need it, and you build it up as you go. That's cool.
Yeah, but I
This
mean,
is a
maybe the
high-end
G5.
dealership with high-end components, and you're going to buy high-end accessories. No one's going to buy it. It's
But
like
maybe,
the Trio.
maybe the screen and such is going to for the G5 with the high end. This is the first one. Maybe there's going to be a mid-range one that's the same size, so you can interchange the different modules around.
God, I hope not.
And
That's gonna
Yeah,
be
that
It's
that
would
is going to
be
be
interesting.
yeah, there's the modules aren't that interesting either. I mean, to the average consumer, they're not going to want a high quality camera add-on or the Bang & Olufsen, audio, whatever, hi-fi.
Even I don't.
Well, yeah, exactly.
By the way,
Even Tecno.
I just found the tweet from Dan. He just says, I checked out the LG G5 in person. There is nothing I like about that design. It's metal yet somehow looks cheap and amateurish.
It does look a bit amateurish. They made a face with the back, so yes, it is amateurish.
And like we said beforehand, Android Central has a photo of like some of the prototypes and everything. And sadly, this is the winner. This is what won out. For those of you listening to the audio version, I waved my arms as an I don't know kind of face. So
I'm just saying, maybe we need to hold judgment and maybe see in 6 months' time, maybe they bring out some other things to go with it, and maybe it becomes cool and works. And
Yeah.
so if anyone approaches us for a G5 review, Mark, I'm sending it to you then.
yeah.
I want to wash
it.
my hands so much of this hot mess that I'll wash in bleach.
Yeah, and I kind of look at it, and I remember from the old Ericsson days where you had this sort of module on the bottom, and you could plug different things in. You could plug in an infrared blaster, you could plug in a Bluetooth module, you could plug in a camera. Way back in the days. So I
remember
want this
breaking those
idea to
things.
work. I want this idea to work. I'm not convinced it will.
Like I said, trying something cool is good when the idea is good. I do not think this is a good idea.
It could turn into a good idea in the future, but right now it's not the best idea.
Yeah. But then in fairness, I was just going to say there was lots of us, we all poo-pooed the iPad when it first came out and had a phone operating system rather than a real operating system.
That's still the case with the iPad Pro.
Well, I still poo-poo the iPad for that.
Oh, yeah, but
it has matured.
Yeah, lots of people at the time did not see where that was going.
And look at it now.
Maybe LG is, doing something that's going to change the world, and in 2 years we'll all have modular phones.
Yeah, exactly. They're setting up for the future, pretty much. Really, we're starting their future off by this, by the G5.
Yeah,
I hope they don't. I hope they're not entering it too early. Sorry, Mark, because the way I see it is, if you enter a market too early, you end up like HTC, who saw like the big pixel thing coming and were like 4 megapixels, but the pixels are fucking huge, and then you end up with ultra pixel.
And that's quite a swift movement there.
It is indeed. Chris saw where I was going.
It's only because I had a tab open, I literally just looked back over and I had the next tab open, and I was like, oh, that's what he's doing.
So go on, Chris. I'll let you go away with this one.
Okay, so there's more leaks of the HTC M10. The first thing that comes to mind for me is, I don't know if any of you remember the HTC Desire I.
Yes.
That had the slapping big, not big.
It was big.
Big camera on the front. Don't think it was big megapixel wise, it just looked big. And that's what this looks like. It actually looks like a crossover between the Desire I and the A9.
Mark, have you seen these photos leaked out by Evan Blass?
Yeah, the photos look kind of shit, frankly.
Yeah.
I look at those.
That's what HTC flagships have looked like for the last couple of years.
I think that it looks plasticky. I look at that and think, your current phone and your previous, the M9 and the M8 and the M7, they look like nicer.
Yeah, but I mean, the M7 is like old and it still looks nice.
Yeah, it's kind of. This looks like HTC have changed something because they're not selling Nobody, HTC are not selling devices because the M9 looks crap, because it looks nice. Does anyone hate it?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
The hardware design was
I'm
never the
very
problem with
vehemently
HTC.
against the M series of phones.
I enjoy the M8.
Like, I can give you very concrete reasons as to why I hate from the M7 to the M9, but I'm not going to because that will be an entire podcast on its own.
But
I'm so sorry, Kirk. Can you repeat what you said?
I was just saying, but there was never anything in terms of general reasoning. Is that the hardware design wasn't the main issue with HTC devices. It was mainly the timing of how they released them. I mean, the M9 was the end of the road for HTC, and it's a dead end for HTC really. The Snapdragon 810 was an awful processor, had major overheating problems, and the software on the M9 was absolutely terrible because it lagged every so often. With the M10, anyway, obviously, well, it's an HTC phone. You don't have to mention the camera because it's shit anyway.
Yeah, they're not the best.
It's the funny thing for
of
me.
all the problems HTC have, looks was not one of them.
No,
they've always looked nice.
No, it's never the issue.
Just the cameras have been a bit underdone.
The best thing for me with the M9 was like, look, guys, we fixed the camera. It's 20 megapixels.
I tell you what,
it had the exact opposite. It was the polar opposite. Whereas the other one had not enough resolution, but it did kind of okay with color reproduction, and it was actually pretty decent in low light. The other one was like, look, boom, resolution. And
I tell you what did
wait
make
a
me
sec,
laugh.
the colors sucked, and it's terrible in low light.
I tell you what did make me laugh with the M9. It didn't have a fingerprint scanner, and then about 2, 3, 4 months later, they released the M9. I want to say Plus, which doesn't sound right.
Yeah, I think we have to stop this now because I can see the path that we're going down.
They're
I know exactly what I want to start saying, and we're just going to spend the next 40 minutes tearing HTC to bits.
I mean, the notes I've put down has basically said, if this is real, HTC deserves to be where they are. And I fully stand by that. Basically, what I believe, HTC, after what happened with the M7, they needed the M8 to be actually really decent and the M9 to be great. They've started to turn course after the M7, M8, and M9 sold terribly, and they all had numerous problems. Like, no,
Heat.
they need
Getting
to
rid of
turn.
heat is one. I
They
will
needed to
admit
turn around
that.
this problem years ago.
Yeah, heat is an issue. I noticed it because I do have an M7 and the M10. They are prone to getting warm, very warm.
So I'm gonna move on before we start like bashing HTC so far into the ground that some poor Korean reporter's gonna find them.
Fun then. God damn it.
I mean, like, I have an HTC guy, and he's already not talking to me for some reason. I say for some reason, I've just bashed his company. So Samsung Pay is actually not in that many places, but it's racked up 5 million users in 6 months. That's kind of impressive.
Is that in Korea by any chance?
US and Korea, I believe.
Well, that's a big reach, isn't it? So that makes sense.
Yeah, South Korea and the US. And over $500 million in purchases in that 6 months. So on a very limited subset of phones and in very limited countries with very limited banks.
Yeah, but to be fair, with the way that Samsung operates as a company, that could be entirely internal purchasing. I mean, they could put 500 million through from one division to another with no problems. So
I tell you what, I've not liked about Samsung Pay and Android Pay and every other Pay apart from Apple Pay.
Not in the UK.
It's not in the UK. Is adoption is slow. There's a thing with most things, but Samsung Pay and Android Pay are the two main culprits.
The funny thing for me is Samsung Pay is actually coming to the UK sometime in the next few months, and they've paid a lot of money to banks to get this like together, and they found out the hard way that this is what Apple had to do to get Apple Pay here so close to how it launched in the States. Whereas they essentially had to go to each bank and pay them, and they had to up the offers when I think it was like 3 banks in the UK were just like no. I think Lloyd's was one of them, Santander might have been another one. I think Nationwide. Were like there was like 3 banks at launch in the UK that didn't have Apple Pay, and it's just like Samsung found out that the way Apple did it, and they remedied it, and it's going to launch soon. The problem for me is Samsung Pay is far, far more complex than Android Pay is. Far more complex.
Oh yeah.
The use case is complex. The use case of Samsung Pay is complex. It's not as easy to use.
No, I don't think so. I mean, that the actual technological stuff behind it is far more complex than Android Pay itself. But Android Pay essentially is just an extension of Google Wallet, which also never launched here. Google has
well,
said
actually,
nothing.
Google Wallet in the very, very early days, if you were to tweak your phone to make your phone think that it was in the US, it would work quite happily.
It worked fine, and then they started doing region locking, but like that, I mean, it never officially launched here. And
the problem is Google, unless you're in North America, Google just doesn't give a shit.
Question for
some of
Kurt.
the things I definitely agree.
Question for Kurt. Do you use Apple Pay?
I do not, because I use my debit card, which has NFC integrated into it, so I just use that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I was just wondering, do you have Apple Pay set up to use if you were to forget your card, or did you just get the iPhone and just go, and just left it?
No, my card is actually set up on Apple Pay. It's just I can't be arsed using it, which is very lazy of me to say because it's just getting your phone out, putting it over the NFC, and then there you go. But
if I can review an S7, I will, purely because I also want to check out Samsung Pay, because I've checked out Apple Pay, and it's kind of cool in the way it works, and I think for a very specific subset of users who have their smartphones super glued to their hands.
Oh, not that.
It is very much a time saver. If your phone is always in your hand when you're in the queue, it is literally just a beep, rather than, oh wait, so I've got to find my wallet, or I've got to dig down the black hole of Calcutta to find my purse. Like, there are people like that, but that isn't everyone.
There is also a sort of third option. I keep meaning to actually write the review up of it, but I mentioned before Tesco Quick.
Wasn't it Pay Quick?
Pay Quick,
yeah. Barcodes.
And sorry,
essentially
banks have their own banking apps. I think EE has their own banking app that works with
probably.
But like that's the thing. There's so many smaller ones. Why don't we have the one big one combining them? That's what annoys me. It's money, guys. It's always money.
Which is where Apple's trying to come in, and because they're Apple, everything gets done slightly quicker.
Money.
They have unlimited amounts of money.
It's not just that they've got more money. They're willing to spend the money.
Yeah, they're not.
Which is where a lot of companies are like, well, it might affect our bottom line in this way and that way, and Apple's just like, yo, it gives us more money.
Yeah, we'll do it. It gives us more money. We'll take the risk.
And I'm not bashing that. Like, it's worked for them. They are the most valuable company in the world for a reason.
Well, it's business, isn't it?
Speaking of Apple and iPhones and Touch
Another
ID,
Swift transaction.
last week we spoke about Error 53, and it turns out that was an accident. It was an accident. It was essentially it was a factory test that was never meant to leave the factory, and Apple's releasing an update to iOS that will essentially remedy the problem. But from what I understand, if your phone triggered Error 53, even though you'll be able to log into your phone again, you'll never be able to use a Touch ID sensor.
No, it disables it altogether.
Which
it's hilarious.
Apple should replace. They should replace that device.
No, because they're saying, well, look, we offer a service. In Apple's point of view, they offer a service to fix iPhones. They offer payment plans that allow you to subsidize the cost, and they offer technicians. You chose to go get it. You chose to get it somewhere that wasn't fully licensed to do it. Like, that is your fault.
Yeah, but how? If you're like me and you live, I'm not going to say you don't live in the city. You live like where the nearest Apple store is probably 30 miles away.
As someone who has tried this, they tell you to book an appointment in advance. That is all they'll say. They'll say book an appointment in advance and travel.
Yeah, but to me, I think my nearest one's Leicester, and if anyone knows Leicestershire and Leicester, you know there's quite a bit of a travel. So what? And personally, I'd just go to Apple anyway because it makes sense. But your average consumer is not going to go from Leicestershire into Leicester to get the phone done. They're just going to go to some bloke down the road that'll do it for them.
Yeah, like I said, I live in Hastings. The closest one to me is in Brighton. There's one in Bluewater near Essex for roughly the same distance, which actually I'd probably go to Bluewater because it's going to be less busy than Brighton is. Which is about an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours, depending on traffic, away from me. But I know family members who have iPhones that go down to town because town is 10-15 minutes away. And whilst they're having food or shopping, they can get someone to replace their iPhone screen.
Yeah.
Like, and I get it. I get it. Apple Care is expensive. Like going to the Apple store and like paying Apple money to do it the right way or the certified way is expensive. And yes, it is definitely a money grab.
But do it well.
But Apple, they offer you the services, and you decided not to take them.
Yeah.
So they have every right to do this.
The thing I like about Apple is they make a product. You can get support for that product from Apple easily. Operating system issue, boom, onto Apple. Hardware issue, boom, you're onto Apple.
Okay, if I could just make a small analogy. Say you went to a Ford garage and you bought a Ford car and you decided that you were going to take it to your local garage, quick fit, whatever, to have it serviced and change the tire. And then Ford come up and smash your windshield and go, well, you took it to somewhere that wasn't us.
No, I can't. No, this is like say if you're using an analogy, that's like saying Ford put special nuts on the wheels, so you couldn't use a standard spanner. You had to jimmy one to then knock it off, and then they put some weird ones trying to put it back together. That'd be that analogy. It's like if everything in the iPhone was completely open, like maybe not open source, but like every tool in it was a standard. Like if they made every blueprint available, if there was a specific tool that phone shops could buy a license from Apple that let them certify devices, like if that was available, I'm sure like the iFixit guys would be all over this. But no, to fix Apple devices, they had to make new screwdrivers. They had to develop new ways to remove screens with distributing heat so it didn't crack glass. They had to develop new spudges. They had to develop all these things because they're so. And again, it's like Ford putting a different kind of nut or different kind of bolt because they didn't want you just using a spanner set you bought in Tesco. That's what it'd be like. And it's super shitty.
Which, to be honest, I'm not sure any other industry would tolerate. But to be honest, I think it'll ultimately be self-defeating for Apple. Because if you're an Apple customer and this problem has happened to you, and you can no longer use Touch ID, and you really want to, especially if you want to start using Apple Pay for things, and you're locked out of that, it just. I think if they have any sense, they will just swap the handsets for people.
Like I said last week, I don't know if you watched last week or listened to last week's one, Kurt. The answer I proposed was if it senses it's been if it senses it's been tampered with, it wipes all private keys and then just wipes the phone from scratch. So there's nothing on it can even take. It's like, yo, we know this has been tampered with, so we've deleted all your data. You can set up Touch ID again. It might not be safe for you, but your data before is now safe. It cannot be taken by anyone else. This way, like what they've actually done is like, yo, you messed it up. We take a feature away.
Yeah, I think Apple went way too far with the Error 53 debacle. Really, they could have gone about it within so many better ways of handling the situation without the social media backlash. Really, just bricking the phone or making the phone unusable altogether is not the best way of fixing an issue, is it really? I mean, it's going to a third party is,
Effectively, what it did originally was effectively a soft brick. It would say plug into iTunes, you try and restore a backup or iOS 9 point whatever, and it'd say error 53, please unplug your device. You unplug it, it'd do the Apple logo, then it'd go into not quite DFU mode, but it would do the iTunes logo and the lightning cable, and you couldn't get past that. Before we get like super pissed
Super
on this,
long.
even like because again, most of these topics we could have had a podcast about themselves.
Oh yeah, we're gonna run crazy like.
Yeah, that's why I said this one's probably going to be an hour and a half ish at the least, and I really don't want it to be much more than that. We're already at an hour and 10. So the $4 smartphone is actually kind of real.
What? This is just like a ridiculous nonsense. Like, it just.
So do you want to catch us up here, Mark, for the people that don't quite know what we're talking about? From the answer to that, I'm
so well,
standing.
it's kind of very skimmy. Not especially.
If you want, I can say it because I read more about it.
Yeah, because I probably will go off a tangent. I was going to go on about the $100 laptop computer and the way that kind of panned out. And it's like, people just like to make up a number and go, ooh, fancy hardware, fancy smart technology, and we can make it stupid cheap. No, you really can't.
So the Ringing Bells Freedom 251. So Ringing Bells is the company. Freedom 251 is the name of the phone. It's called Freedom 251. The 251 is 251 Indian rupees, which equates to, when these articles were put up, about $3.60.
So it was rounded to 4 just to make life easier.
So it's rounded to $4 to adjust for inflation. It was a 4-inch QHD, and this is a lowercase q, so quarter HD, which is 960 by 540, a quarter of full HD. Quad-core 1.4 GHz MediaTek processor, 1 GB of RAM, 8 GB of storage, 32 GB micro SD card slot, 3 megapixel camera on the front, on the back, 1 megapixel camera on the front. Both were fixed focus, I believe. 1400 mAh battery, and it looked like an iPhone 3G. Like it
That's
looked
being
like,
kind to it.
yeah, it really looked like an iPhone 3G.
It looks like a bit of concrete with some buttons and some cutouts, is what it looks like.
But sorry, Chris, the problem with the Freedom 251 is they couldn't keep the site open long enough to actually take the orders. It kind of crashed really soon. I think 600,000 hits per second on the site for people trying to buy this thing because it's super cheap. They got 30,000 confirmed orders. So out of 600,000 people per second, for the short time the site was up, I think it was only up for like an hour or so. They only got 30,000 confirmed sales. The controversy comes when it turns out that it isn't actually the oh, by the way, one of the reasons it's so cheap, it's supposed to be subsidized by the government and for part of their Made in India campaign. Turns out it's actually a rebadged, I think it's Adcom Icon 4, I think.
A piece of turd, basically.
Well, maybe a piece of turd, but it costs upwards of $50. And in some, I think, early devices they were handing to press literally had the Adcom logo up top Tipp-X'd over. So you could like take a coin and like rub it off.
And what the key point you should make out that Adcom is not Indian, it's Chinese.
No, it's Chinese, yeah. And so yeah, Adcom's Chinese. And it turns out it's even worse than this. It's not even properly certified for the Indian version of the SAR radiation thing. So the radiation, when you take and make calls from the radios and the phone, it's not going to cause cancer. It isn't even certified to properly like run the networks.
What do you expect? It was $4.
But that's the thing.
But it's basically it's not.
What do you expect?
It was going to be claimed at that price essentially because the government gave a great big wad of money and was going to subsidise it.
Even that's in contention. Even that is. We don't even know if that's true anymore. I was speaking.
I bet it was a big wad of Indian government money.
But taking 90% off of the phone.
Why not?
That is a lot.
Do that with an S7 for me.
I've spoken to Craig. I think I'm still going to try and get one of these in for me to review as just kind of like a shits and giggles type thing.
Just to take a giant turd all over it.
Oh, I'm not doing that on camera, damn. This is kind of one of those. It's so crazy. As Mark was saying, it's people kind of a pipe dream of, oh, the economy of scale. If I get X amount, I can actually sell this laptop for $100. That's not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, that project, did that ever, or anything approaching it ever happen? No.
I don't think so, no.
No. The closest that came out of it was
one laptop
Intel.
per child, right?
Yeah, Intel eventually made like some little netbook thing for $250, and they ended up selling a bunch of them instead. You know, it's just, yeah.
I'm gonna move on again because we've got kind of limited time and there's so much stuff, and this is kind of just. It was interesting because of the headline $4 smartphone, and at $4 you didn't care if it was a piece of shit.
But it's like those adverts you
safety hazard.
Yeah, but it's like those adverts you see about, wow, a secret, people are buying iPads for $40.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not really.
So, moving on, we heard leaks, we had heard rumors a while back of HP making a Windows phone. I think it was under the brand, the codename Falcon.
I think it was.
It was meant to be this absolute beast of a phone, and it actually kind of is. What is it? It's a 5.8 or so, or 6-inch Quad HD display, Snapdragon 820. Why Quad HD or why 6-inch?
Why Quad HD?
Because reasons, Chris.
Why not
Quad
1080?
Because more tiles.
Snapdragon 820, 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of internal storage, 2 terabyte micro SD card slot.
I like that.
I can tell you why the resolution. Because your tiny little phone that's this size has to have more pixels than your monitor that's this size.
There you go. 4,150 milliamp hour battery, USB Type-C, using USB 3.1. I don't know if it's Gen 1 or Gen 2. I'm hoping Gen 2. Knowing my luck, it's Gen 1. And this is fully kitted out with Continuum. This is kind of cool because it's the first Continuum we've seen with more than one mode. So they've got a desktop dock with like DisplayPort, USB, HDMI, and a USB-C pass-through for power. They also have a weird laptop dock, which has no RAM, storage, or processor. It's literally a battery, a screen, and a keyboard. And if I understand it, it's not using Miracast to wirelessly do Continuum to the laptop. You can wire to the laptop if you want for Continuum, but they're also having a wireless mode. And I want to figure out, because if I've heard it's not Miracast. If it is, I will laugh so much I might actually piss myself. Miracast is so bad.
What I want to know is, see with all these docks, now is it just me, but I instinctively think, oh well, if you're going to dock it and essentially mirror the damn thing, would you not have it in landscape, not portrait?
It's easier to dock something with a port on portrait.
Then again, the way Continuum works...
less hassle, you can do it one-handed.
Just...
Yeah,
if it had pogo pins on that edge, I'd agree, but the pogo pins are actually on the back, like.
Yeah, just.
So if you think about it, the way that Continuum is used is it keeps the phone as the phone and still gives you the full control of it, and then just how's the best way of like a secondary display. So to have it docked portrait does actually make sense to me. And if you've got a small desk and you're trying to use it that way, to have a phone in portrait is going to take up less room than it is in landscape.
So going back over to here, I've got some more photos here. The dock has USB Type-C, 2 super speed USB 3 Type A ports, DisplayPort, a gigabit Ethernet jack, and a Kensington lock port. This laptop actually does kind of look kind of nice. If they actually made it as an actual laptop, I think a lot of people would buy it. 12.5-inch 1080p display, 2 Type-C ports and a Type A port, I believe.
Yeah, but it looks alright, but it's going to be stupid priced.
Yeah, and it's only for business. Sorry, Kurt, what was that?
It's a good idea overall. Anyway, it's spec'd out to the nines. It'll act as whatever you need it to be. If you're a Windows fan, like if you want your Windows phone, you can have a Windows phone. If you want a laptop, you can have a Windows laptop, etc. It's a good idea, and I think you can buy it as separate without it being a business use. You can actually buy it online, I think. So.
Oh, okay, I was under the impression that it was businesses only. It might just be like majorly business.
Oh, it's not going to make any difference. No one's buying one anyway.
Well, it's Windows Phone. Who the fuck wants to buy a Windows Phone?
There you go. That's the spirit.
It's like, who wants to buy a 950?
Drinking. See, Kurt, if only you'd been drinking, you'd be right in the spirit of this podcast. So, I want to care because I really like HP, and like, I want Continuum to be like Continuum can be super cool if Windows or Microsoft gets the one thing people won't do, which is to take its platform seriously. Like Windows has accrued so much stuff over its time. It's kind of great. That's it. It doesn't need to do anything. I mean, it will do stuff. It doesn't need to do anything to still be successful because it's so large already. It's almost too big to fail. On mobile, however, it's definitely able to fail. And one of the things it's getting with Continuum Windows 10 Mobile is, with Windows 8, they introduced the Microsoft App Store, much like Apple did on, I want to say Mavericks, but probably before that. But whereas Apple decided to essentially lock out developers that didn't use the App Store, Microsoft realized that if it did that, people would find a way around it anyway because it's Windows. So no one really made things for the Windows App Store, and then they kind of like really played it down with Windows 10, and they're like, "Yay, make universal apps! You can only get them through the Windows Store." And there's like 3 of them have been made.
There's got to be a way of side loading.
Unfortunately,
on what, OS 10?
No, with Windows Mobile.
Not if you want universal apps. They have to be signed.
no, can you not just go in and say allow side loading and it lets you?
Don't think so. I think they.
I know you could
if you want a Windows
Android
Universal app
thing.
If you want a Windows Universal app, I believe it has to be signed and distributed through the Microsoft Store.
Like
But to be honest,
iPhone
their
then.
store is just so broken. I mean,
yeah.
if you actually try and it's again, it's the same problem I have with the Cortana. It tries to use Bing to do the searching, and it's crap.
Speaking of Cortana, is something I'm actually going to switch the last two up here because Cortana ties in really good here. So Cyanogen, who used to be Cyanogen Mod, was an open source ROM. Then it became Cyanogen Inc., which has Cyanogen OS, which is a private part which it has a business that it sells Cyanogen OS or licenses Cyanogen OS to people, has now come up with Cyanogen's Mod platform, which is different than Cyanogen Mod the OS or the custom ROM. Really confusing. The Cyanogen Mod platform, Cyanogen space Mod platform, is essentially what I think Google should have done with Android in the beginning, which is you have the core, and then there are several layers of abstraction that you can change. So what they're demoing, I think, is a 1+1 with Cyanogen OS, Cyanogen Mod 13, but they've replaced Google Now with Cortana. They've got a special Skype hook into the dialer. They've got Microsoft apps into the camera. They've got a special social lock screen that ties into Instagram.
Why do you want social lock screens? They tried it with Facebook Home and it failed.
If you follow people that take pretty pictures, I know a lot of people that'd find that very attractive proposition. So
but it's going to be a data
really
hog.
cool. This is
Of course it is cool. It allows developers to sort of implement features into certain parts of the platform without a software update. You know,
Yes.
it's just it's an extension of your phone. You can choose if you want a social lock screen, you can have a social lock screen. You know, if you want different integrated features, but other people don't want, you can have that as well. It's all about choice, isn't it?
And I think the important thing, like I said, is it's abstracted from the core OS. So that means security patches, full OS updates aren't really hampered by this.
No, it'll
That's
just work
important.
seamlessly. It'll just work as is. Yeah.
This is why I said this is what Google should have done in the beginning. Make
A bit late now, but yeah, I
This is
get what you mean.
This is modular in the way it should be. This is what I mean by I wanted it to be modular. Mark, have you got anything to say? Or is it along the lines of
No,
don't use
just
Cortana?
basically. Well, no, I mean Cortana. Well, I kind of like Cortana. It's just every time it tries to do something other than what it's been specifically programmed to do, it tries to use Bing and Bing shit. But like what you were saying with the modular attributes, I mean, this is one of the things I was saying a few weeks back, where I think Android needs to go. In general, is it needs to become like Windows. It needs to start separating out drivers from the core OS so that things like security updates, various app updates, and whatever else, that can all be done independently from each other. And so you're not relying on Samsung or HTC producing or not producing a year late an OS update.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from.
I agree. Back to Cortana for a second. If you want anything fun to do with it, either tell it to do a joke or tell it to do an impression. And it always seems to do Yoda impressions for me, which is kind of all I really want it for. Or it told me a really like grim joke about like early Siri. If you asked it like where can I hide a body, it would give you like here's a quarry near you, or like here's a smelting farm. And I was like, what? Like this early thing was just like I can't even remember. It was so morbid. I loved it. Actual like personal assistant stuff, Cortana's kind of useful. If you need it to like know any information stuff, Mark is right. It's useless. It uses Bing.
No, I find the one thing that I do actually use Cortana for, it's for finding out what time it is in different time zones.
Yeah, that's useful. See, I don't use Cortana at all. I don't even have the little icon on the navigation bar because I couldn't see a use for it.
Yeah, I've miniaturized it.
I
don't have
rid
the
of
big
it.
bar.
If you suddenly need to know what time is it in Seattle,
I just Google it.
just ask it. And
See, that's kind of the thing where I wish I had an Amazon Echo.
Oh, yeah, the Sony things, the Sony ones. Yeah, we.
So
But
yeah,
then
no.
again, go on, Dom.
I was about to say, let's move on to the Sony stuff.
I was just going to say, with Mark's the way he used Cortana to find out time zones, if I want to know a time zone, I'm normally on my phone anyway. And I use Action Launcher and I have the quick bar. So there's a little microphone up and access Google now. So Cortana is dead to me.
Moving on.
Yeah, Sony and their crazy ass shit.
Yeah, Sony did some wacky shit. So they announced 3 new phones, the X lineup. There is the XA, the X, and the X Performance. And when you say their full name, which is the Sony Xperia X Performance, or the Sony Xperia X, or the Sony Xperia XA, you realize how stupid they are.
Hasn't the world given up on Sony?
Huh?
Hasn't the world given up on Sony, or is that just me?
I certainly have as well.
Yeah, I just don't care. I've never liked the Xperia skin.
The only time the Xperia skin bothered me was on the Xperia X10 when it was still called Timescape. And it was like, what is it called? The original Snapdragon, so Scorpion core at like 1 gigahertz.
Yeah, it choked.
It was really bad, and it had all the social stuff like they called them splines. If you remember that far back, you had Twitter and Facebook splines, and it was like an S kind of card shaped and kind of like a weird Rolodex, like a 3D Rolodex. Chris, I don't know if you even know what a Rolodex is. You're so young.
Rolodex. The name sounds familiar.
Jesus Christ. The XA is the cheapest of them. It has a 5-inch 720p.
Yeah, to be honest,
display.
I'm just going to say, should we just skip the phones because they're really boring. They're just.
Alright, let me speak about one phone. The X Performance is the one I want. Alright, 1080p screen, Snapdragon 820.
You want the
I
Z5.
do. Huh? I don't want the Z5.
Why? But this
You
is
want the Z5 compact?
Why would you get the X Performance? Would you rather than the Z5?
Snapdragon 810 versus 820 for one, smaller size
true.
for another, better resolution for the Z5 compact.
Yeah,
The only thing I'm worried about of the X Performance compared to the Z5 compact is battery life.
Isn't that a thing that everybody's worried about with every phone, funnily enough?
Well, with Sony, it wasn't really the case. I mean, the Z3 had impeccable battery life, and it sort of kept the same trend, well, recently.
Yeah.
Sony, up until recently, with the Z5, it didn't seem to have the best battery life in the world, but it wasn't the worst by any means necessarily.
I mean, I had a Z5 compact. It had a 720p screen and a Snapdragon 810 with like a 2600-ish milliamp hour battery. That was like actually really.
Yeah, it's quite nice.
It was really good. The only problem I had was no matter what charger I used, quick charger or not, it seemed to take forever to charge. But
I
this,
haven't
this
cared
has
for quick
a
charging.
similar, this has like a similar size battery. I think it's 2800, but it has a more powerful processor and it has a higher resolution screen. That is what's slightly bothering me about it. But yeah, Mark is right. The phones aren't the interesting stuff about what Sony announced. So Mark, go tell us the stuff they announced, and I will say what I've been telling you all day, and then we can do the quick topic and then sign off.
Okay, well, a couple of things. The first thing they came out with is a little earpiece, which is basically Sony's version of Cortana and a Bluetooth earpiece.
If you've ever seen Her, have any of you seen the movie Her?
Yep.
No.
Oh, watch Her. It's got Scarlett Johansson as an AI. It's not Her. What do they call it? The Sony Hear or Sony Listen or whatever. It's essentially the Motorola Moto Hint. It's a mono Bluetooth earbud with a tiny touchpad on it that just taps into Google Now.
Yeah, it's like, it's a Bluetooth earpiece, basically. That costs more money.
Yes. So what was the other thing?
The other couple of things, and there's another three things. The second one, which is not going to go anywhere, but it's just cool and crazy awesome, is they have a projector.
And like all the cool projectors Sony has, it will sell to 5 people, all of which are on the board at Sony, and it will never have a wide release.
Yes, but it seems to have some sort of weird monitor where you touch on the projections. Which
Yes, I did know
that seems to be super cool, and I'm sure it works horribly in real life. But it's just crazy, and it's awesome.
Alright, next.
Next, there is like the little earpiece, but they've had a camera. So it's essentially a little camera that you clip onto your clothes and wear, and you, I don't know, you do like...
Go around your day.
We've all seen the little GoPro cameras that you get and you strap to the dog or the cat. Well, it's like that, but for people.
Yeah, there's actually another company that did this exact same thing. It was a tiny square camera. It was called Tile, and they did like... there was like Live Scribe or something also did like a similar thing of like
but if I
tiny
recall
square camera
that
that
one,
people...
for some reason it had some tiny amount of storage.
Yeah, it had like 1 gig of storage, and it took a photo like every 15 seconds. So
Yeah, that's not
before
going to last very long.
Before the day was up, the thing was full.
Yeah, which is just idiotic. So I really haven't seen any kind of specs on this thing, but just the concept of a clip-on camera that you just wear constantly to, I don't know, monitor your life. It's like one of those crazy Russian car black box cameras, just record everything, and eventually something interesting will happen.
Yeah, right. Whoops. Why would I want a strap camera that would catch me going from home, doing a day at college, coming home again?
Because one day,
interested
like
in
an
that.
aircraft might land in your front garden, right?
I don't have a garden, so that's a bit difficult.
The road in front of your house. You know,
That's all right. My bike's stored on the road, so it's not really damaged
damn
my
it,
bike.
Chris.
it's just this absolutely weird ass, crazy, ridiculous thing that I can find absolutely no reasonable or practical thing you would do with it, but I just look at it and think, that's crazy, and I like it. I like it.
I could find a use for it.
A legitimate use for
A
it.
legitimate use for it.
This is going to be interesting.
2 uses, actually. They're kind of the same thing. One is a dash cam. Think about it.
But it's like a dash cam, but for you.
Yeah.
If it's on you and you have an accident, it's going to go flying with you anyway. It's
Yeah,
gonna
but
go
it
wherever you are.
Here, it's not really going to show much. It's going to show you your chest hitting the wheel. Well, hitting
You're
that
going to
area.
get fucking destroyed before you can even take the data off of it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's like Bluetooth linked and it's constantly pinging the photos up to the magical cloud in the sky, and who knows?
I want to know what Bluetooth you're using.
But isn't this just conceptually? It's so weird. I don't know what I would do with it. I don't know what it's supposed to do, but it's just crazy and exciting and interesting.
So strange you love it.
And given everything else in MWC so far has been, we have a glass slab. It's rectangular.
It has a screen, a battery, a CPU,
Yeah.
a GPU,
And
some
Sony's
I/O, and that's about it.
yeah, Sony's come along and go here's some crazy ass thing, go mad.
Yeah, I could see the use of using it whilst I was riding the bike, because trust me, you do not realise how many wankers are on the road in cars.
See, there you go.
But then
You need
again,
to
it's got
get
to be
one.
waterproof, and if I have an accident, I'm probably going to smash it in the process.
Yeah, but you'll be smashed too, so you won't care so much.
All right, and last off, they had a weird Amazon Echo kind
Yes.
of. That is.
It's like the Amazon Echo, except it seems to have a little camera that can monitor you. And I bet I'm desperate that before it goes into production, they put a little red LED in the middle, and it calls you Dave no matter what your name is.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
Yes.
Like how?
Aha. Essentially, that appears to be what they've made.
I mean,
That's
like,
going to be privacy
It's going to
concern.
control your lights, control your heating.
that seems to be like the default reaction. Anyone who has anything they can speak to, if they could change how it responds to them, most people do change it to that. Or like Jeeves, or like Batman. I've seen so many people like change their name in their iPhones. So when they say Siri, what's my name, and it said hello Batman, or something along those lines, or like swear words is another fun one. If I could change it to like Dave, like I probably would.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they
I
have
like
to do
I like
already.
intentionally
A little
ask it
red
something it can't
LED.
do.
Just yes, and you have to regularly ask it to open the pod bay doors.
Or just like, ask it things you know it can't do anyway.
Yeah.
What's this one called? Like, what's this official name?
Oh, it began with an A.
Original.
I don't know. I'm just gonna call it the PAL thing.
Yeah.
I get it. That's what I'm gonna remember it as. But it just, again, it just seems that from MWC. So I mean, what quite it's got to do with mobiles, I don't know. But Sony have come out with something just really off the wall, crazy, and I look at it and think that's so awesome. I so want one.
It's old Sony, is what it is.
Yeah, it's
Old
you know
crazy
it's it's Abido. It's that little dog that everybody goes, what the fuck is it for? I don't know, but it's awesome.
Ibo, I totally forgot about Ibo.
Yeah.
Um,
Sony doing crazy shit, and it's good.
yeah, Sony doing crazy shit is not new.
I mean, look at the Z series.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah. Actually, there's not really much more I can say about that. I've just seen the time, and unfortunately, I think what I'm going to have to do is sign off. But before I do, I quickly want like kind of 1 second, 1 sentence answer from you guys. I want to start with Kurt. So, Kurt, with everyone making kind of their own event anyway now, and these things being so huge, are trade shows even worth it anymore?
Difficult question. I think they are required in some regard for the smaller companies out there who not going to get their name out there as prominently as Samsung, LG, Apple, etc. So trade shows in that regard, it's more than one sentence, but fuck it, I'll make my own rules up.
That's the spirit.
I think trade shows are required still for the newer companies out there trying to get their name out there, trying to get their own brand out there, trying to networking really. So it's a way of networking, isn't it? A trade show, and it's
Like Remix OS. No one would have heard of that if it wasn't for CES.
Exactly, yeah. So it's they are required in some regard. It's just well, yeah. That's all I can really say is that they are still required.
Cool. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm a Kirk on this. I can't speak on this. The smaller companies is probably the only use I see for a trade show. Yeah, okay, it is nice to see some big companies announce things at trade shows, but 9 times out of 10 they're going to go with their own thing. So yeah, they kind of still are required for people like Remix OS, Nextbit. Can't think of any other small ones off the top of my head, but yeah, they kind of still are.
All right, and lastly, Mark, what do you think?
Kind of the same thing. It's for the little companies, or not so much always the little companies, but like the little products like the crazy Sony things. They're niche products. I'm sure Sony is aware of that. Sony is not going to roll out, a global media campaign to advertise them. Whereas, it pushes it out at a trade show. Journalists can pick it up and say, "Hey, look, this thing.
Yeah,
It'll get some coverage." Yeah.
Everyone's there. Everyone's in one place. So yeah, why? Let's show some little things that aren't on our main scale, but they're just little fun projects. We'll show them at a trade show. Press are there. We ain't got to fork out money to hold our own events.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for things like the S7 launch. I mean, Samsung, they don't need to do that at MWC. They could do that whenever they wanted.
I mean, for 2 years
they could hold it anywhere on the planet, and journalists will go.
I mean, like I said, for 2 years they did. The S3 was announced in London. As we were saying in Slack earlier, I would be very happy if like MWC was like a rolling thing where they change the location every year. Mainly because I'm like lazy. Yeah, kind of like March of the Droids. Speaking of that, something we should speak about quickly before we sign off. Just quickly, I found out what they called it. It's the Xperia Agent.
Oh my God.
Yep, the Xperia Agent, the Xperia Ear, the Xperia... Xperia Eye is the camera.
These are so cheesy.
They would just let 5-year-old...
The projector hasn't got a name. They haven't got a name.
It's called Projector.
Yeah, it's the Sony Xperia Projector concept.
Yeah.
Did they hire a 2-year-old to come up with this?
I think they must have done.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I'm just thinking.
Or did they hire Dom when he was drunk?
The little dog thing.
Ibo.
Sorry. Yeah, just I like seeing Sony come out and do something a little bit crazy. It's fun. It's been certainly the most interesting thing I've seen from the MWC coverage.
Yeah, it's not something you see every year at MWC.
Yeah. And like I said, this year, it's funny seeing how Samsung has acclimatized to kind of the Western audiences. They're still kind of weird and crazy with their press events, but LG has stayed full-on Asian crazy. The only way I can really say this with in the real world is if you see will.i.am in public now compared to about 5 years ago when he was barely had any presence in the UK. He's been here for a while now. He's less ostentatious. His jokes are getting more UK-ish. That's kind of what's happened. And then you get another comedian from the US or a musician from the States that's boom, American crazy. That is what LG and Samsung are to me. LG is stayed on full-on Asian crazy. Samsung is acclimatized. Oh my god, I need to learn to breathe again. So, that is the end of episode 14. Remember that, Lull, of Talkin Tech.
Jesus.
I know.
Give or take one or two, but...
I swear to God, Chris, I will mute you if you do not let me finish. Alright, on Twitter, I am at mobile_dom. Chris is at chriswallace959. Mark is at mark2410. And our special guest is Kurt at nitrozk. The website is at mttfeed. You can find us on www.mobiletechtalk.co.uk. Instagram, we are MobileTechTalk. Facebook, we are MobileTechTalk UK. YouTube and Google+, please search for MobileTechTalk. They won't give us a fancy URL yet. And lastly, as always, Patreon. Patreon.com/MobileTechTalk. If you give us some monies, we can make better shit for you. So I either need to get bigger lung capacity or just remember when to take breaths. Thank you guys for joining me this week. This is almost an hour and 45 minutes. So well, good luck to
I'm just watching the battery tick by slowly.
Yeah.
I did try and warn.
Yeah, you joined a bit late, so your one's a bit shorter than ours, but not by much.
I'm coming up to about the 143 mark.
Yeah, I'm 142-ish.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kurt, for dropping by this week.
You're welcome.
You're always welcome to come back whenever we have space. We should have a few more guests within the next couple of weeks. I'm really looking forward to actually getting more people from other websites coming in. Not that I don't like Chris and Mark and Craig. I think it's nice to have other people. I'll offend everyone. I'm a fucking
Not really.
but it's
Could
nice
say
to have
more than
nice
that.
to have outside views coming in. And again, thank you, Chris and Mark, for joining us this week. And as always, we will see you next week. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ.